everybody. In today's video, you're going to learn how to hold your horses and breathe. Just kidding. But horses have been on my mind because they've taught me something really important about fear and action. And this video is for you if you feel like you've spent a long time hesitating on the sidelines, thinking, observing, analyzing, preparing, and there's a part of you that's just itching to step in, to play, to enjoy your life, and to do your meaningful work. But you have this fear that keeps pulling you back to the sidelines. And I know this pull well, this urge to step in, this longing to participate, and this felt tension between wanting to move forward and holding yourself back. And I want to tell you a story about a moment where I learned that confidence doesn't come before action. It actually comes from it. So last spring, I found myself in a situation that looks small from the outside, but it changed my relationship to fear and action in a very real way, in a very physical way. So last spring, I had this opportunity to start spending a lot of time around horses. It was at this horse riding center that my friends ran, and I started volunteering there for a bit. My experience with horses up until then had been extremely limited to a few occasional guided trail rides over the years. But I absolutely loved being around them, and I still do, so I went to help as often as possible. I'd help guide the horses from their grazing fields to the saddling area, help saddle them up, and if there was an extra horse, I'd join the easy sunset trail rides. And these horses are used to being all together in a herd and following familiar paths, like all in a line. Some are natural leaders and they go in the front, but most of them are very comfortable following in a line. And as you can imagine, that makes for a pretty easy and passive riding experience, which is perfect for the kind of clients that would ride, that were mostly tourists. I gradually built a little confidence riding, especially when I got to help herd them. And I learned how to trot and even canter a bit, but I'd always be at the back following the herd. And I'd never ridden alone, so I'd never led a horse on my own. Never a lone rider, but I was getting pretty comfortable with it all, though I remained in fearful awe of just how strong these beautiful creatures are. And I was also very impressed by my friends' riding skills. I really felt lucky to just be there. And I always had this exciting feeling of, ooh, I shouldn't even be here. What business do I have around horses? I hadn't even had a single riding lesson. So yeah, it felt like a happy mistake and one that I hope would last as long as possible. But something was about to shift. One day I was riding a pony named Pepe, helping herd the horses down to the saddling station, and my hat flew off. And there wasn't time to go back and retrieve it because we were in full cantering mode at the rear of the herd. And I just figured I'd go get it later on foot, or it would be lost forever, and that would be fine. I didn't give it much thought. So we continued down the trail that also wound through the streets of the little Greek island village. And when we arrived and started tying up the horses to saddle them, my friend Natalia noticed that my hat was missing, and she just casually said, "Oh, we have some time before the ride, so go ahead and hop on Pepe and run back and get it." And I thought, what? You want me to take Pepe all alone and go ride all alone? Are you sure that's a good idea? And she just smiled and said, yeah, it'll be good for you. And I had all these objections and hesitations and thought, is it safe? Do you think Pepe will listen to me? Are you sure? And eventually she just got fed up and she said, just go. And so I went. Pepe and I went. Pepe and I rode, and we got my hat back, and we returned safe and sound. Now, I'm not saying that it all went perfectly smoothly or anything like that, but had I not done that, I would not have found out that I could move through the fear and the self-doubt and come out on the other side with the knowledge and the knowing that I was more capable than I had originally thought. Sometimes in life and business, you don't get the proper writing lessons first. You don't have the perfect roadmap or the formal training or all the instructions. You just start playing. And waiting until you're fully trained or something like that before you even enter the game is a rule that most of us make up, and it doesn't serve us. Confidence is built by doing, and action, the doing, it kills fear. Confidence doesn't come before action, it comes from it. It starts with rewiring a belief, moving from this isn't for me to I get to play too. And sometimes the shift can be even less dramatic, you know, moving from I can't to why not? And a deeply curious why not? And that way you start to shift from passive observer to active participant. It's an identity shift. You're in play, you're in the game. Not because you suddenly and magically became more skilled, but because your identity shifted. It wasn't that riding was not for me. I just hadn't played yet. And as you're listening to this, I want you to think about your own life right now. Where are you still following the safety of the herd? Where are you still on those familiar paths, not because it's necessarily the right one for you, but because it feels safer? Maybe it's a project you've just been thinking about for years. Maybe it's a business idea that you keep refining but never releasing. Or maybe it's even a conversation that you keep rehearsing but never actually having. And if fear and self-doubt come up as you consider this in your life, that doesn't mean stop, even though it might feel that way at first. It usually means something matters, and in that way, it's an important messenger. Action is the answer. The only antidote to fear and uncertainty is action. You've spent years studying and observing. You have a wealth of knowledge. And if you're watching a video like this, there's a part of you that knows that you're capable of much more. There's probably also that ever-present self-doubting part, but lately it's probably getting pretty annoying because the pull to listen to that deeper part, the part that knows that you can grow stronger, is getting harder and harder to ignore. Am I right? And when you try to talk to some of your friends about it, it might come across at like pressure. They might say things like, you're being too hard on yourself, just relax. You overthink things, you expect too much out of yourself and out of life. And, they might have a point sometimes. But this feeling is different. It's not just a tangle of thoughts. It's visceral, it's physical. More of you is involved. You're just craving action. And that's a frustrating place to be if you just stay there. And I don't think you're meant to stay there. And if you're watching this, I have a feeling you already know that. So hold your horses, take a breath, pick a direction, make a simple plan, and go get that hat. Take action. Take that next best step. You won't regret it. If you happen to be at a point where some extra support would be helpful, especially around gaining clarity about your next best step, I have a 2-hour self-guided workshop called Drop-In, and I'll link it below for you to check out. It's a training portal with short audio and video sections, plus a workbook with exercises that you can work through at your own pace, a structured pause that leads to action. And before I wrap up, there's one more thing I want to name about this little lone rider story. Pepe didn't suddenly become a different pony, and I didn't suddenly gain years of experience. What changed was that someone I trusted, Natalia, saw capacity in me before I was able to see it in myself, and gently but decisively removed that buffer of safety. The people in our lives are pure gold. They're our mirrors. They help us see our blind spots and sometimes our strengths more clearly. I talk a bit more about this in this video here, No Man is an Island. So check it out here, and thank you so much for watching.